Hi everybody, how are we? Good morning. Gee whiz, day 2, or it feels like day 4 for me, and probably a few of the speakers as well, but listen, actually Giga Man has been pretty busy. But the world of solutions been buzzing, I know the sessions have been buzzing, we've had great feedback from yesterday's goings on, and we were even trending on Twitter, #1. Well done, Rowan. But hey, what about today? International Women's Day. Now, be a part of the celebrations and the recognition at the Cisco Empowered Women's Network, which is on all afternoon up in the Melbourne room. So go and get a piece of the action, have some fun, and but also you've got a lot on the next couple of days, so you've got to look at your schedule and really work out how to prioritise. There wasn't a lot of prioritisation. Who prioritised the run this morning? Hands up, anyone? Yeah, well, I was enjoying the pillow show at the same time, so... But listen, there's tomorrow, everyone's chance to redeem yourselves. Listen, we all know this wouldn't be possible without our great support from our diamond sponsor, Optus. They've been fantastic this year at Live. Make sure you get down to their stand, and they've got a terrific innovation talk on today. But listen, it's a huge day, and day 2, it's really about one big play, and that's why you're all here. It's all about Tech Keynote. That is the play of the day. And of course, we are very lucky to have one of our best engineering leaders to deliver it, Liz Santoni. Now, what do I know about Liz? Well, Liz joined us in 2000, that's a long time ago. Her first claim to fame was as the VP of Service Provider Access Engineering, leading strategy, marketing, and all of the hardcore engineering efforts. But one part of the portfolio was not enough for Liz. She had to have a piece of all of the action, so she then moved into engineering strategy across all of the portfolio before she's been appointed as the Senior Vice President and General Manager of the flagship Computing Systems Product Group, including UCS and hyperflex, and she has really pioneered and led the industry with what we're doing with hyperflex. She is an extensive mentor, developer of talent and leadership, really big priorities for Liz, and she really is focused on sponsoring underrepresented groups in our industry and at Cisco. She's launched the Women in Engineering Leadership Forum at Cisco, and she's our global executive sponsor for the Women in Science and Engineering program. She has won so many awards for her contribution to women across technology, engineering, and leadership. Now, she's also a chem major, and because she's a bit twisted, she threw in a minor in maths and physics as well from the University of Mumbai. She's a very classy lady. She's a wonderful orator, very engaging. She's a true inspiration and role model to young women and young men wherever she goes. But enough of the civilities. This lady is a geek. In fact, the more I researched it, the geekier it got. We are talking peak geekiness. She's a huge Star Wars fan. But lucky for her team, she booked out the entire IMAX theatre and took them all to watch Episode 8 in December. There might have been a few engineers that got a thrill out of that, I suspect. But listen, she does have a few problems. She actually swaps her iPhone case every 2 weeks with new Star Wars regalia. BB-8 can't go beyond 2 weeks. She's then got to go to R2-D2 and then to Princess Leia and so on and so on. Liz, I've got the number for the Employee Assistant Program for tailor-made for problems like that. You need some help. She lives by the quote, "Well-behaved women seldom make history." I'm really worried about the next hour, what she's got planned for us on stage. Her heroes are her parents. Her dad taught her about working hard, and her mum taught her about taking chances. She has done both. Please welcome Liz Santoni.
Good morning. It was really hard with that AC/DC music not to come up on stage dancing, but I wanted to spare all of you that. We are living in the era of right now. So why do I say that? Right now, a shopper switched to another online store because it took the application way too long to load. And right now, a team of software developers uploaded 1 million lines of code to the cloud, and they're going to launch a brand new product. Right now, a company receives this ransomware note: pay up or lose your entire data. And right now, a team of engineers develops this new technology that will disrupt an entire industry. We are absolutely living in the era of right now. Instant gratification. We all love instant gratification. We actually don't just expect it, we demand it. 8 seconds. 8 seconds is all it takes for us to decide, should we stay on this website or leave? And that was 2 years ago. Today, all it takes us is a mere 5 seconds. Now, this is not new news. We face it every single day as consumers and IT professionals. Yet, we're always struggling to keep up. Because how do you keep up with something that keeps changing? I mean, when you look at it, the pace at which technology is coming at us is fast and furious. And what feels like, boy, this is so fast today, will likely seem slow tomorrow. I was just talking to one of our customers about a couple of weeks ago, and his story came to mind. And he was telling me about his frustration. And he said, it took us some time, and we just started to deploy containers. And my CIO kind of waltzed in, and he wants to talk to us about serverless. It's intimidating. It's overwhelming. I totally agree. It is overwhelming. But, and this is what I truly believe, it's also an amazing opportunity for us. I mean, think about this. Before, all our applications would sit behind the four walls of a data center. What do we do today? We work with our users to decide, should those applications sit in the data center? Should it sit in the cloud? Or should we consume it as a SaaS? Now, does that make us any less valuable? Absolutely not. Because the core mission of IT still remains the same: to move the business forward with innovation. We have the opportunity to spend less time managing the machines and passwords. We have the opportunity to spend less time on mundane tasks. We actually get the opportunity to reinvent IT. We get the opportunity to be a true partner. A partner in business, a partner in technology, a partner in innovation. So you're thinking, great, all of that sounds fabulous. How do we do that? That's exactly what I want to talk to you today. I would love to be able to showcase Cisco technologies and the tools that would help you. We believe it's these 5 elements of future IT that will come together as the formula to help all of us thrive in this era of right now. How do you use your cloud? Private cloud, public cloud, as well as your on-prem data and applications to be able to enable your business. How we're reinventing networking and how that will benefit you. How we're unlocking the power of data with analytics. How we need to look at security as a continuum so we, the defenders, can actually stay ahead of the attackers. And you, How do we invest in you? Everything all of us are doing every single day is changing. So how do we make sure that we invest in you? So I'd first like to start with multi-cloud. Because when I think about it, cloud has probably been the most influential in reinventing IT in the last decade. Now, the cloud makes a lot of promises. It's fast, it's easy, it's agile, and it's undeniable. We would all agree. It's a lot of that. But when we asked you, our customers, here's what you said. Only 12% of you said today that you have a fully thought out cloud strategy. So we asked, what is your cloud problem? Well, it depends. It depends on who we were asking. When we talked to those of you who are your network admins, server admins, storage admins, here's what you said. I want to be able to build and automate my private and hybrid cloud infrastructure. The emphasis being on automate. And I want my infrastructure to be container ready, because my newer applications are being deployed using microservices. And I'm also thinking about refactoring my existing applications. And I'd like to be able to have the option of managing this on-prem infrastructure from the cloud, because it just takes the hassle away. Then when we talk to those of you who care more about the IT operations side of the house, here's what we heard. I care about the consumption. I care about the adoption. I care about the data management. Every single day, I'm being asked to do more with less. I don't want to see us on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, so I want to make sure we have a consistent security policies across our entire environment. I want visibility into my infrastructure and my applications. So when something does blow up, I want to be able to get to it as soon as possible. And I'd like to be able to optimize my workload. My workload could be 100% in the data center, 100% in the cloud, or some combination of it. Then when we talk to those of you who are developers and lines of business owners, all you wanted to talk about is the application and the ability to consume services from your native environment and from any other environment. You were very candid when you said, I actually could care less about the details of the infrastructure. I actually don't even care which cloud it comes from. I want to build my application using microservices, using open source, and I would love to have data portability. And when it makes sense for my business, I want to be able to consume it as a SaaS. So we took, after hundreds and probably thousands of these conversations, there are 3 things that bubbled up. 1, the world is multi-cloud. Here's how we translated what you're asking for. Set my clouds free. 2, networking and security are the hardest problems to solve. And 3, we can bring the power of analytics and automation to simplify. So here's how we're solving it for you. So what you see up here is a curated set of Cisco services and software portfolio that comes together as a multi-cloud portfolio. Now, there's detailed products under each one of them, and in a minute, I'll show you how it could fit into an example environment of yours. But starting from the top, think about cloud advisory as something of it's the expertise, it's the know-how, so that you can help you design and plan for your unique environment. Cloud Connect, to help you securely extend your private into your public environment. Cloud Protect, to secure your users, your devices, your data, your applications across this entire environment. And the last one, Cloud Consume, to help you deploy, to help you monitor, to help you optimize those workloads, no matter where they sit in this entire environment. So let's take a look to see how this could fit into an example environment of yours. What you're seeing up here is an example of, say, what a modern enterprise looks like. So on the left, you have users and things. And these users want to be able to access applications that's sitting way over here, right? It could sit in the data center or private cloud. It could be in the public cloud, or you want to consume it as a SaaS. So those users can actually go from the branch and campus, could go directly to the internet, but it's most likely that the way your security points are defined, that they're going through the SD-WAN and edge before they get to the applications. So let's take a look at how we can render Cisco's portfolio in this environment. So with Cloud Connect, if everything like Meraki Systems Manager in the branch and campus to the CSR1K, which is multi-cloud today. With Cloud Protect, you have AMP for endpoints and Umbrella and Cloud Lock for your SaaS protection. And for Cloud Consume, you have the fabulous Cisco Cloud Center, which is your multi-cloud orchestration platform, and App Dynamics that allows you to do your performance management and monitoring regardless of where that application is sitting across that entire environment. So as you can see, we've got a comprehensive portfolio to help you through your multi-cloud journey. But there is a lot more, because we know your cloud journey is going to be unique to you. And this is why we want to be able to give you flexibility and choice. To do that, we're partnering with some of the largest cloud service providers on this planet, like Google Cloud. I'm excited to have our Google Cloud partner here with us in the audience today. I'd love for you to be able to hear directly from Google on what solution that Cisco and Google is building together and how it'll benefit you. So please help me welcome Country Director of Australia and New Zealand, Colin Tim.
Hey. Hi, Liz. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Colin.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. It's great to be here. Been here a few times before at Cisco Live, first time in this capacity. Can I say this is the best one so far? It's been fantastic, yeah. It's really
Absolutely, I have no problem with that. So Colin, top of mind question. I'm sure a number of those in the audience are thinking about it as well. What's in it for Google to partner up with Cisco?
Yeah. Well, let me firstly say, it's just such an exciting time at the moment. And by the way, I love the way you summarized that, made it pretty simple. It's very complex behind that, but it is such an exciting time. We're seeing great momentum in all markets and industries with Google Cloud Platform at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's just so exciting. But I've got to say, there's an inflection point right now as we're seeing it. And I guess that kind of comes to those reasons. The three reasons that I think that this partnership is so key for us is, one, for Google Cloud, it reinforces our commitment to the enterprise and to the complexity, the agility, the flexibility that's required within the enterprise. And what better partner to be doing that with than Cisco, quite frankly. So we're really creating a new hybrid solution offering that enables organizations to span their workloads across on-premise and in the public cloud. So really they're kind of leveraging and utilizing the capabilities and the platforms from cloud-native microservices and solutions in that regard, together with the traditional components, and actually enable developers and IT professionals to be able to develop, deploy, scale, automate, and run those applications and manage them either on-premise or in the cloud. So that's that first reason. For Google Cloud, it's about that enterprise credibility with Cisco particularly, very exciting. The second reason is that it starts to enable developers to really take advantage of GCP tools, Google Cloud Platform tools, and our advanced services with things like machine learning, AI, analytics, and scale databases, and really look to how we could leverage those in an on-premise and in the cloud basis. So really start to think about that in a more open way. And so, there together with Cisco and the networking and capability we have around the data center really starts to make that quite profound, thinking of the developer in that sense. The third reason, probably skipping on to the next slide, is I'm really excited with the support that we're getting from Cisco in the open standards that Google Cloud has brought to market. So particularly here with Kubernetes and the container technology we brought there, as well as Istio, and also our API management solution in Apogee. So really building here a platform on the Google Cloud or Google Container Engine, GKE, which together again with Cisco's prowess in networking and data centers, really brings us something quite profound to the market. Really excited about that. And you think of Kubernetes, the open standards we bring there for container application management, deployment, scaling and automating those applications in containers and those workloads in containers. Istio and what that brings in terms of those microservices as you spoke of earlier. And then the API management piece is really key for us as well, really leveraging those legacy workloads and applications and taking those into the cloud as well.
That's fabulous. So truly a game changer, because I don't think anyone else offers the ability to develop once and deploy to any cloud for that matter.
I think absolutely a game changer. And I think we're kind of shifting here, moving away from just the pure lift and shift and really embracing the traditional and embracing some of the legacy on-premise is the first reason I think it's a game changer. But the second, and I really want to emphasize this, it's those open standards that we're starting to leverage now more and more. And so when you think of that, enabling choice, enabling customers to move to the cloud in their own terms, I think it's just, that's the way it's going to be. It's not just one cloud, it's multi, and it's certainly hybrid. And just great to be here partnering with Cisco in that.
And exactly like you said, at their own terms, because every customer's cloud journey is going to be different.
It's different.
It's going to be in a completely different path, and it's about giving our customers that choice and that flexibility.
Absolutely.
Colin,
thank you.
Fabulous to have you here. We're truly excited about this partnership. Thank you for joining me on stage.
Thanks very much.
Let's give it up for Colin. So as you can see, this is not just a partnership on paper. This is actually a co-engineered solution. We have engineers from both Cisco and Google working on developing, on delivering, and supporting the solution. So Colin talked about Istio and Kubernetes and Apogee. I'd like to touch on what Cisco is bringing to the solution: networking, our security portfolio, consumption management, and the private cloud infrastructure. At the heart of that private cloud infrastructure is Cisco HyperFlex. It is a cloud-ready, container-ready platform leveraging Kubernetes. Now, what is unique about this platform compared to any other hyperconverged vendor in this space? The platform is able to understand the application that actually sits on top of it, which means you can deploy any application at any scale with confidence. Okay, so what's the secret sauce? The secret sauce is in the distributed file system in Cisco HyperFlex that was built ground up for hyperconvergence. So let me show you what I mean. What you're going to see up here is a controller VM that's blown up. Now, it's not my intention to actually go through and call out each and every layer in that stack. What you see on the left here is what first-generation hyperconverged vendors did. They built their file system on top of an existing file system. What you end up with is a large software stack that has many inefficient layers, and it results in performance and latency bottlenecks. What we did with Cisco HyperFlex is that file system was built ground up for hyperconvergence. You have a much more efficient software stack delivering the best performance. And we're not stopping there. In fact, coming out in the next few months, We're using capabilities like hardware acceleration. So we can take some of those very data-intensive services like dedupe and compression, and we're offloading that. What you get is the #1 performance for any application at any scale at the best TCO. That is a winning formula. We know it's going to take your on-prem, private cloud, and public cloud to enable your business, and we want to be able to give you that flexibility and choice. My second element is about networking. Intent-based networking. Intent-based networking actually started for us in the data center when we launched ACI in 2013. We're now bringing intent-based networking into the campus, branch, and the WAN. In fact, last June, we announced some significant technology bringing intent-based networking into the campus. Now, this is about reinventing networking, a technology we brought to market. This solution is on fire. We've got thousands of customers. It's been a multi-year journey for Cisco. Significant investments in silicon, in software, and in hardware. So to tell us how networks in the future are going to be built, how we are helping you bring it to life, and how you can benefit from it, I'd love to now invite our head of enterprise networking, Scott Harrell, to the stage. Come on up, Scott.
All right,
Scott,
thanks, Liz.
I'm going to leave this here.
I
Take it
appreciate
away.
it. That was
All
awesome.
yours.
Thank you so much. All right, so as Liz said, I run our enterprise networking group. This is the Catalyst switches. This is the AirNet access points, the ISR routers. And we're really excited about the transformation we're bringing to the market. And when you think about the momentum we've already seen with data center, and Liz mentioned this, it's been on fire. 14,000 customers have adopted the Nexus 9K. And of those, the new customers that are adopting that are now 45% of the time choosing to do that with an ACI fabric. From a Catalyst point of view, the Catalyst 9K was only launched back in June. And we already have 3,500 plus customers. This is the fastest ramping product in Cisco's complete history. And that's thanks to you guys. And of those customers, we already have over 150 customers that have actually done DNA center deployments in either production or pilot phase. And we're getting massively good feedback across all verticals, across all segments, about the value they see out of that. And this journey, though, as Liz said, is a journey we've been on a while. We started out by transforming the platforms themselves, and we'll talk about that. We moved to an automation layer to come across those platforms and program them with intent. And now we're leveraging those same platforms to pull context out of them to actually be able to do next generation analytics and assurance. And where we're going to go as we evolve is we're going to start applying machine learning and AI to that. And you'll even see some of that today, some of the early efforts in that. And over time, we'll take that context together with that intent and we'll close the loop. And what that allows us to do is to automate in ways we haven't been able to do before so the network becomes constantly learning, constantly adapting, and constantly protecting. Really exciting things, but I want to double click on this assurance piece and on this analytics piece. And I want to start by kind of harking back. How many of you guys have actually used a foldable map anytime recently? Okay, I was going to be shocked if that was that many hands. Personally, it's been years already for me. But you remember them, right? You picked them up, you looked at the roads, you saw where to go. If you went to a new place, you had to go buy one. If you had to go on a really long journey, you had that book, and you got to go across the different tabs. Useful but painful. And you think about what you do now. You pull out your phone, and you look at your phone, and your phone anywhere in the world. I flew to Melbourne. I immediately pulled out my phone, and I could immediately see what was around me. I could not only see the routes, I could actually see the restaurant. I could actually know what that restaurant's relative score was to its other peers. In my case, I got a little sick. I could actually find the nearest pharmacy. Extremely useful. And I actually could see what the hours were. That's the context coming around that map, taking something as simple as a map and making it massively better. great analogy for what we're trying to do for the network. When we look at what we're doing for the network, we actually want to do this not just for the enterprise networking, but for data center, for security. We want to take best-of-breed products, combine it with a fabric-based integrated architecture, and then power that all by intelligence. And this is a technical audience, so I do want to actually go down a layer on this. So for the campus and the branch, what precisely does this mean when we say it? When we think about those areas, what we're talking about is a best-of-breed product. And we think about like the Catalyst 9K, what have we done? We completely redid the operating system to something called iOS XE. And when we did that, we made it highly programmable. So you could take interfaces that are standards-based, like netconf and Yang, and now program the network directly. We made stream and telemetry come out of these devices so that we could actually apply analytics to it. We redid the ASIC architecture so that it was programmable, so it could adapt as things change, as the world gets more dynamic. And we embedded x86 into the switch so that we could run snippets of code right there on the switch itself. But we didn't stop there. We actually started rethinking about how you actually build a campus and a branch network. We learned from our data center brethren, and we start to bring fabric-based architectures that span the switch and the wireless domains, that go into the routed domains even, things like VXLAN, things like Lisp, and brought those to bear on the network and changed how we actually want you guys to build networks. And this is really important in the security domain, because things like segmentation become massively easier to do when you take this approach. And when you want to stop things like ransomware, you need segmentation. The last piece, though, and this is where we're going to spend some time after in just a second, is around intelligence. We also said, okay, now we've got the stream and telemetry coming out of the devices. We have to rethink how we actually consume that. And so we built a whole new data analytics engine. And you saw some of this yesterday if you attended the keynote. And what this is about is how do we actually bring a context graph onto all that information that's time series based that's coming out of the network. And why this is so impressive is you think about an average enterprise that you guys might be running. In a single second, there'll be 60,000 entries into this context graph. Over the course of a day, that means there's 5 billion entries. Over the course of 14 days where we hold this, that means there's 72 billion entries into this context graph. And what we're going to show you in a second is how easy it is to pivot through 72 billion entries. And you have all that data at your fingertips. To help me do that, I actually want to bring Liz back on stage and join me as we walk through this demo. Liz, come on out.
Love demos.
Yeah, it's a technical crowd. We got to do them, right? So what we've got here is DNA Center. And what we want to do is look at the Assurance app, which is the actual thing you interface with that's run by the analytics engine. And so when you walk into the DNA Center, the first thing you see is an overall status for your network. You see what the relative health is, and you see that for the network and for your clients. And in the past, when you wanted to find this, and all you guys are network operators in this room, what did you have to do? You had to log into a switch, you had to see if the interface is up, you had to log into an access point, do the same thing. Extremely painful if you're running a network of any scale, and now we represent that via health score.
So a lot more steps than what we're seeing up here in terms of what you just pulled up.
And what's also useful about this is when you look at this, we not only tell you the health, but we also tell you where you're having issues. And we quickly sort those by the scale and the severity of a particular issue, so you know what to go focus on first across your entire estate, users and devices. And so let's take a simple one here. We'll just pick this one, and what you see here is that we've actually suggested actions and we've actually told you what's going on. And what's cool about this is, you think about our experience. You've been here since 2000. I've actually been here since 2000 as well. We got 18 years of experience. I've learned a thing or two. How about you?
A few things.
A few things? You're still working on it? But like at Cisco, we've been in business for 30 years. There's a lot of collective knowledge we've gained over the years. We've actually embedded that into this system via 150 plus algorithms that's growing all the time that make these recommendations back to you. And all that's done automatically and easily for you.
Wow, so we're taking all that data and we're looking at unlocking that power of that data.
Exactly, making it simple for the user. And so the nice thing is right here in the same tool, you can actually run corrective actions. And what's cool for a lot of people in the room is we not only run the action for you, but a lot of folks here still love CLI. We actually show you the response from the different system right here in the tool, making it super comfortable for those of us that are like me that have been around for a little while.
Don't want to let go of CLI yet.
That are used to it. But a lot of what we want to talk about these days is, and the reason we run networks is for the users and the devices. That's what it's all about, right? And so we actually did this whole thing with insurance where we actually look at the various client health of a user. And when we do this, we actually can do this at scale across our entire state, see everything we know about all our clients on our network. We can understand versus our own internal SLAs, whether we're doing good or bad, from a client onboard time, from a connectivity point of view, all these different metrics. But let's assume that you've just gone into business, you got a little tired of working at Cisco, and you've now taken over Hugh Jackman Enterprises. And
we actually call him Logan.
Logan,
so
okay.
We're clear.
Well, Logan's a little pissed, which is, as you know, is not a good thing.
We don't want to get Logan pissed because you know what comes out.
Because he's having some bad problems. So we can quickly find Logan in the system, and despite many, many hundreds of users, and bring that back and hone in on him. And when we do that, what we see is, sure enough, yeah, Mr. Hugh, he did have an issue. Here we see the present time. And
So is that what the red line is about?
The red line's where we see a low score in health. A health score 1, bad. Health score 10, very good. And we can go back in time and click on Hugh and immediately see what his issue was. And so
He's got a lot of issues, though.
he's got a lot of issues. And what we see is that immediately that he failed on a AAA request. And so the most likely action for this is that he didn't know his password. So you might want to work on that with you. And this is the kind of thing that they'll, users, you guys all support users, they'll quickly blame anything on the network. And you need to be able to quickly show that it's not the network's fault. And this helps you do that. Last thing I just want to highlight is, we also want to become proactive, right? It's great that we're able to actually quickly solve Hugh's problems, but we want to know how he's doing on an ongoing basis. And you mentioned the Google partnership, but we also have this incredible partnership with Apple.
Right.
And a lot of people wonder what that's all about. And what's really cool about that is when you think about most of the network management tools in the world, they're kind of networked down. Like we're looking at the network to try to understand the user. What we've done with Apple is we actually expose the analytics from the device itself back to DNA Center. So this is the device's point of view of the world, Hugh's iPhone, and how it's perceiving the APs around it. Nobody else in the world can do this. Only because we are a trusted entity and we've managed to partner with Apple on this are we able to show this kind of detail. So that's what I had for you, Liz.
That's amazing. But I have to ask this question on behalf of everyone else in this audience. Do I have to throw everything that we have and to be able to get this capability?
That's the cool part is, when we were designing this, we really put a lot of thought and energy into how we build this so that it can actually work back into prior generations. So if you've bought a router, you've bought a switch, you've bought an AP from us in recent times, chances are it can actually work easily with DNA Center. And so this could be a Catalyst 3K, Catalyst 4K, this could be a Wave 1 AirNet AP, this could be an older ISR. It can still work with this system and you can still get all this value. So no, you don't have to buy your whole network. If you do want to, though, I'm sure your Cisco representative will help you with that. But you can get a lot of value out of this as is.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks for having me, Liz. And,
all right.
Appreciate
Let's
it.
give it up for Scott.
Thank you.
So as I look out in this audience, I'm sure there are a number of you who are Meraki users. Any Meraki users? At least about a quarter of the audience are Meraki users. So before we leave this topic of intent-based networking, I'd like to talk about how we're extending it to Meraki as well. I talked about how applications are moving to the cloud. We want to make sure that the users have a good experience. This is why we're actually introducing Meraki Insights, bringing it to market actually this week here at Cisco Live. So let's take a look at what Meraki Insights does. What you're seeing up here is actually a snapshot of the live network at our San Francisco Meraki offices. So Insights is actually tracking a few web applications. And immediately you see that there's an issue with the Square point of sale system, and it's actually in the coffee bar. Now, mind you, this is an engineering office, so we want the coffee flowing freely so that the engineers can actually get back to work and develop new capability. So it's key to get that resolved as soon as possible. So the first thing I know when I look at something like that, I'm thinking, it's a network issue. No offense, Scott, but it's a network issue. But actually, when you look at it, when you scroll over it, what you see that the network's mostly okay. It's got some minor problems. We'll come back and address it. The issue is with the poor application performance. When you double-click on that, it actually shows you what the root cause of the issue is. And it says it's a slow server. It's definitely not a server that's being built in my group. Probably is a non-Cisco server for sure. What we're doing is bringing the power of the cloud to mine through a significant amount of data to help you get to the root cause as soon as possible. So last month, we introduced Meraki Wireless Help to troubleshoot your Wi-Fi networks. So you take wireless help, you take insights, you now have the troubleshooting capabilities end-to-end from your users all the way to your applications. Continuing along the same theme of data, I'd like to talk to you about how we're bringing a higher form of analytics using advanced technologies like machine learning. Everybody talks about this massive explosion of data. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to bore you with another stat. Let's all of us just assume that data is infinite. The question is, what should we do with it? Well, let's take a look at what we've done with it so far. I found these two stories actually pretty fascinating. I'm sure a number of you in the audience might remember it. May 1997, the Deep Blue computer beats Garry Kasparov for the first time, and the world is shocked. Let's fast forward 20 years. A machine learning software called AlphaGo that was developed by Google developers beat Lisa Do, one of the strongest Go players in history. No one ever thought that that would happen for another 10 years. Now, the approach that was used in these were fundamentally different. In the example on the left, they used the brute force method. The developers fed the Deep Blue with every possible plays and moves, and by sheer computational supremacy, Deep Blue won. In the example on the right, in Go, unlike in chess, there's unlimited set of options. What the developers did is fed AlphaGo with data, a lot of data. The algorithm actually looked at millions of games and developed its own strategy and tactic. So developers taught AlphaGo how to learn, and it developed its own intuitive sense. So what did we learn from this? The amount and quality of data matters. The best AI is only as good as the amount and quality of the data that you feed it. This is the principle that we used in developing Tetration analytics for the data center. Tetration lets you look at every packet, every flow, every process, every piece of software. In fact, Cisco IT, within their first 6 months of using Tetration, went through 88 billion flow records and found that 40% of their VMs were stranded. Think about this. It's putting money back in your pocket in the era of right now. To help us show, or help us see more of what Tetration can do, I'd like to invite up the product management leader for Tetration, Yogesh Kaushik. Yogesh, come on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Liz. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, too.
So, before we actually get into the demo, I have to ask this question. Tons of analytics tools in the market.
Correct.
Why would we develop our own?
That's a really good question. So typically when you look at the data center, whether it's a public cloud or private cloud, you eventually want to serve applications. The idea is the data center infrastructure exists to serve applications. It's very simple. What we noticed was that most people didn't understand what these applications were. how they're behaving, how they relate to the infrastructure, and these applications change over time. Most of the solutions give a snapshot view. This is point in time. This is what is happening today. But what if that keeps changing? Tetration was built to understand your applications, protect those applications, segment those applications, and really go top down. And that was the genesis.
Great. Let's take a look at it.
All right? So let's start with a very simple view. This is what a typical application...
So what are we looking at? Looks nice and pretty, but what are we
pretty,
looking
right?
at?
And beautiful colors, too. We're looking at what a typical application looks like. Right? Now, application is not your standard web app and database. It would typically relate to infrastructure components like DNS, DSCP, some orchestration things like Puppet that you see here. What Tetration does is starts with a zero-knowledge environment where our customers say, I have no idea what these applications are, what they're doing, how they're behaving, and starts discovering and creating a fingerprint of your application. So what I can see here, for example, Tetration automatically discovers that I have a web tier that happens to be talking to Puppet, to Tetration clusters and sensors, and so on and so forth. I could also see things that are not showing up here. Islands. You talked about standard workloads. So Tetration will actually show you those islands because there's no connectivity between those. And you can just very easily say, these are not needed, and I could just retire them off.
So does it also show what application should not be talking to another application?
That's absolutely right. So when you're looking at all of this connectivity graph, it's actually showing you what applications are doing, what infrastructure and other components they're talking to, as well as what ports they're communicating on. If you click on any of those, it'll show you the neighbors. And you can actually see these are the neighbors that I do expect them to be talking, or my intent actually says I shouldn't be talking to them. And that's your security hole, and you can plug it in.
So as you've worked with customers, do you find something as obvious as a production application talking to a lab database?
Oh, I wish I had a penny for every time I see that, every single time, and within a couple of hours, actually, of deploying Tetration.
OK, so how are we using Tetration to secure the data center?
Yeah, so let me share you with some of the things that we just literally announced this week at Melbourne. So we've added some extra capabilities into Tetration. So not only are we monitoring what these applications are and what they're doing and how they communicate with each other, we're also looking at what's deployed on them. So I can actually see that on this particular workload, I have something deployed here that has a known vulnerability. Now, this is a very common problem. We keep seeing this Apache struts, Heartbleed, WannaCry that spreads like a wildfire. Talos, our threat intelligence feed, we had this information 3 months before it happened. So why does it keep happening? Why didn't you patch this stuff up? Tetration will actually discover in real time what your workloads are, different components of application, and where these known vulnerabilities are already there. So now you can define a policy to quarantine those workloads.
That's great.
There is more.
Oh, OK.
We also look at what's actually happening on these workloads, what different processes are running, and how they come about. So essentially, we're looking at, let me just play a little video for that.
What are we looking at? That looks pretty funky.
It looks very funky, right? Let me just play it out and see. It's essentially trying to tell you, from the inception of this workload, when it came about, how does everything play out? What different processes are and how they run? So think of it creating a behavioral baseline or a fingerprint again of what's happening on the workload. Now, you could also say, my database typically behaves like this. 5 servers that are database servers do the exact same thing. The 6th one is doing something different, and that's an anomaly, and that could be a breach.
Great. Talk to us a little bit of how you're actually using machine learning.
Yeah, so everything in Tetration is driven based on behavioral analysis. This is based on monitoring hundreds of different signals from each workload. That's millions of events that are streaming into Tetration. And then we use unsupervised learning to start grouping things based on what they do rather than what their IP address happens to be at the time. Okay. That's how we start grouping things together. That's how we find anomalies as well.
OK. So as a user, this is the interface I get to see every day.
Correct.
All right. Could you show us what it actually looks like under the hood?
Well, for this audience, we'll make an exception and show that. So you can see there's a lot of open source technology that we use underneath Tetration.
Looks complex.
It does. It's kind of like a data center in a box. I'll show you some very cool stuff about this in a minute as well. So you can see we use distributed file system, which is Hadoop, very standard. We also use our pipeline processing, which is Spark and Flink. Our UI is all Rails-based, so very common open source technologies. But primarily what we've done is make it run at a very high performance. So UCS servers, we actually use 96+% compute capacity.
The ones that actually don't ever cause issues.
Absolutely, that's why we standardize on that. So fundamental thing here is to run that open source technology at a very high scale and very high performance, and that's non-trivial, and that's where our intellectual property comes in. And of course, we're contributing it back to the community as well.
That's great.
Now let me show you, this is something that I think some of my engineers are sweating in the back, because you see something red here. It's showing some hardware has actually failed here. So everything that Tetration does in terms of monitoring the data center, we flip it and turn it back on itself as well. So it's actually monitoring itself. So it's telling me that everything is up and running right now, but something has failed and I should pay attention to it and swap that hardware out.
That's great. It's great to actually see something that we usually don't get to see, because we always show customers what the pretty side looks like.
Right.
Versus kind of what the sausage making behind the scenes is like.
Correct.
Excellent. Yogesh, thank you so much for joining us. Really looking forward to seeing what new capabilities you guys are bringing.
I'm looking forward to sharing with you all. Thank you.
All right, let's give Yogesh a hand. You know, as Yogesh mentioned, Tetration allows you to look at everything that's happening in your data center. Because if you don't, you're flying blind. And speaking of flying blind, I'd like to talk about security, because you can protect what you cannot see. The question that I'm sure every single one of us gets is, are we secure? That is really tough to answer, because we're secure until we're not. So why is it that we cannot answer that question with confidence? Because this picture is not pretty. When cybercriminals get into your network, they're staying for a much longer time. Actually, the amount of time that cybercriminals are staying in the network once they get in is at an all-time high. 2, the market is flooded with hundreds and hundreds of vendors, with point solutions and niche products, with each one saying, hey, buy my product, it will make you secure. And there is a serious lack of talent in this space. So without the qualified security expertise, how do you decide what to buy, how to deploy it, how to manage? We believe it really is about changing the security equation. Because the question shouldn't be, are we secure? The question should be, do we have the right security posture? Cisco's security strategy is based on 3 things. We will always build the best-of-breed products in the category that we're in. We believe it should be an end-to-end integrated architecture, because the products need to interoperate so you can automate. And third, it's about intelligence, and intelligence delivered from the cloud. Think about it like this eye in the sky. It sees everything, tells you what it sees, tells you how to address it. I'm really glad that we have one of our security experts here today to tell us about how Cisco is solving this intense challenge. Please help me welcome the CTO of the Security Business Group, Brett Hartman.
All right. Thank you,
Brett,
Liz.
all yours.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Great to see everybody. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story of Cisco Security. And that story starts with Talos. So Talos is an awesome team. It's a team of threat researchers, and they spend every day looking for threats. We like to think of Talos as our secret sauce, maybe secret Vegemite, perhaps. And what they do is they take information from millions of sensors across the world. They analyze it, they look for threats, look for 0 days, and they push updates back down into the portfolio, into the infrastructure. So what we're going to do now is look a little bit at how all the Talos feeds, how it feeds into what we call the kill chain, right? Typically what the kill chain is, it's a well-known technique of the set of steps that the attacker goes through when they try to get in and attack a user in an enterprise. So at the beginning, when an attacker is first trying to get set up to do an attack, typically Talos gets involved right at the beginning, and in fact detects the setup, the staging of this attack, works with third-party service providers on that takedown. So that's step one. Now the next phase in the kill chain is launch. This is when the attacker is pushing malware out onto the internet, and that typically comes in, for example, through email or web. And we have a number of different products and technologies to be able to detect it and stop it. So first of all, we have DNS security. That's Umbrella DNS, very, very effective in terms of detecting those attacks. We also have email security and web security for those classic payloads. So in the next part of the attack, that's exploitation. So this is when an intrusion is typically coming in through the network, trying to get through the firewall. And so, of course, our suite of firewalls is very, very effective here, whether that's Meraki at the branch, whether that's Firepower at the edge or in the data center, incredibly valuable, and takes all this threat intel from Talos that we described to be able to detect new threats. Now, next in the attack kill chain is the install. So this is when malware, if it has managed to make it into the organization, is trying to detonate on an endpoint. So this is where AMP, the advanced malware protection part of the portfolio, comes into play to be able to stop that detonation. We also take advantage of Threat Grid. So Threat Grid is our sandboxing technology to discover new days. So an extremely effective set of technologies for the very latest attacks that are out there. So next, the next step in this journey through the kill chain is really the callback. So this is when, if an attack has made it in and is detonated, it tries to phone home. So getting command and control instructions to be able to figure out what to do. So again, here is where Umbrella DNS security plays an important role to be able to detect and stop that when that malicious software tries to phone home. And then finally, we have the persistence portion of the attack. So persistence is when malware, if it's made it in, tries to spread very quickly laterally through the organization. So if maybe you detect it on one server and take it out, it may be in other servers that you've missed. So as Scott mentioned before, segmentation, incredibly important for security. So segmentation, network segmentation, as well as ICE, the Identity Service Engine, which does access policies. So very relevant for constraining and preventing propagation of these attacks. Also, another important part of being able to detect and stop persistence is Stealth Watch. So that's for network analytics, to look at lateral movement from one machine to the next. And then finally, CloudLock, which is our cloud access security broker, can enforce access security when those attacks move to the cloud. So one of the key points as we think about this whole architecture is it's all about sharing events. Lots of examples about sharing of events and context across this entire portfolio, and that's absolutely how it works. And it's supported by managed advisory and implementation services to ensure we successfully deploy it. Now, one thing you might be thinking, does every attack, everything follow through these steps? Well, of course not. There's all kinds of different variations. It's maybe a little bit like a baseball game or cricket, where everybody's got to play their position. So you still need a shortstop, even if the ball gets hit to first base, because you never know. On the next play, it might go between second and third. So everybody's got to play their position. And in that sense, that's what our products do in that same way. So the story of Cisco security is all about the power of integration. You've got to remember that security is never about a single product or a single box that you're just going to drop in and magic's going to happen. The story of security is about architecture. It's about tying these products together, and we've invested massive amounts to ensure that we have the very, very best possible integrated solution to protect our customers from cyber attack. Thanks very much.
Brett, before you leave, I actually almost tripped over myself running out here. I have one question for you.
You do.
What are the bad guys thinking about next?
What are the bad guys thinking about? Well, I'm actually really glad you asked me that, because in fact, that's what we think about every day. That's what Talos does. And there's actually a great example. And this, in fact, just happened last month at the Olympics. So in South Korea, it turned out there was actually a pretty serious cyber attack at the very beginning during the open ceremonies of the Olympics Games. It caused some network outages. It actually prevented people from printing their tickets to get into the opening ceremony, so pretty big deal. It turns out that the Talos team that I mentioned did a lot of work in terms of the malware analytics around that attack.
Wow.
And what we discovered is kind of some disturbing issues, which is that attack wasn't about stealing information. A typical attacker is trying to steal, credit cards, intellectual property. In this case, the attack was about disruption. It was specifically to take down machines and cause damage.
Scary.
It really is. And in fact, what we're seeing more of this trend. Now, we're all familiar, for example, of the Russian interference in the US election. And to me, this is part of a much bigger trend where these kinds of cyber attacks are actually politically motivated to cause disruption across the world. And so this is something we have to be vigilant for and ready for the next one.
Well, we're glad we have Talos.
Me too.
We're glad that we have the security experts to keep us secure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Brett.
you. We'll see you.
My last element is about you. We talked about networking. We talked about security. We talked about analytics. But none of that is going to matter without you. So what is the next 2 years going to look like? There's some things that will change and some things that won't change. Things that won't change is the foundational skill sets that you already have. Whether it's 2 years or 20 years, that's something that you'll always have. Well, what is going to change? Automation is one thing I can think of. It's not just going to be an add-on requirement anymore. It's going to be table stakes. And 2, the power of community. I mean, think about this. Every problem that you're likely encountering, somebody else probably already encountered it and has solved for it. So it's about using the power of community to accelerate what you're doing. Here's how we're helping you. With learning labs, tools, and communities at developer.cisco.com, and you can actually find it right here in the world of solutions. So very quickly as I hit these, right? In learning labs, get hands-on experience using APIs. Let me use an example. When you double-click on networking in terms of if you want to learn to program networks, you can actually do it from 2 personas, as a network engineer and as an application developer. Or as a network engineer who wants to get into the head of one of the users, there's a perfect way to actually do that. If you want tools, Cisco DevNet offers a 24/7 hosted sandbox where you can develop and test. In fact, one of the most recent sandboxes is one of Istio with Kubernetes. So you get this Kubernetes cluster with Istio already deployed on it. You can actually reserve it. You're good to go in minutes, and you're on your way to doing your Hello World example. And then, with communities, you can see what others are creating. You can see what communities are trending, what communities might actually be of interest to it. There's so much more in DevNet. I'd highly encourage you, if you haven't already, visit the DevNet zone in the world of solutions. So we firmly believe it's these 5 elements of future IT that are the formula to help you thrive, to help all of us thrive in the era of right now. I love the theme of Cisco Live, superheroes. Growing up, I collected comics, but I'm not just a comic book purist. I love TVs. I love movies about superheroes. In fact, my current favorite is Wonder Woman, especially when played by Gal Gadot. But when I walk into work every day, I'm surrounded by a number of superheroes. These are just 3 of the more than 25,000 engineers at Cisco. These are the people who create what folks like me get to stand up here on stage and talk about. These are the people who innovate and innovate for the era of right now. And I want to thank them. I also want to thank all of you. We bring the technology. You actually bring that technology to life and create these amazing experiences that enable all of us to thrive in the era of right now. Hope you have a fabulous week, and thank you. Ken, hand it over to you.
Wow. Fantastic, Liz. Super. Hey, team, how good was Liz? Woo! And what an all-star cast as well, but I tell you what, I feel like we've dodged a bullet. Chemistry major, chemical elements. I was waiting for Walter White to come out. Thank God he didn't. But terrific session there, Liz, and that's how it's going to continue with the innovation talks. More of that great lineup down in the world of solutions. Don't forget about this evening. We've got a little shindig going on with a singer by the name of Jimmy Barnes. If anyone's heard of Mr. Barnes before, Barnesy, should be a great night. Make sure you've got your ticket so you can get in. It's just at the Central Pier, buses from the Pan Pacific, and there's something there for everybody. Silent disco, games, chill-out zones on a boat as well. We have raised $8,900 so far. You have raised it. Congratulations. We're going for 20 at least. Now, we've had one person in particular who's ridden 74 kilometres. I don't know if he's actually attended any sessions, but he's done some great riding. So keep up the good work. I want everybody on those bikes, but we want you here tomorrow. If you thought that was great, come back tomorrow for more. It's our closing guest keynote. We have Elisa Camplin and Dylan Alcott. They will be special. So be here or be square. Enjoy day 2 of Cisco Live. Thank you.